and welcome to Homeschool That Works, where we offer practical encouragement for homeschooling families. I'm Marie.
And I'm Keely. And you can find us on YouTube, on Instagram at homeschoolthatworks.com, as well as listen to our podcasts on Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and Podbean. Hi guys, and welcome back to Homeschool That Works. Today we're going to try and encourage you that homeschoolers don't need what you would think of socialization in public school settings. We're going to cover this deep topic today that ruffles the feathers of public schoolers and homeschoolers alike.
If you have homeschooled for any period of time, you've probably gotten that question, what about socialization? And I always kind of internally laugh at that because socialization in our homeschool is the least of our worries. I actually have to tell some of our other homeschool friends that we cannot socialize today because we actually have to do school.
And we have real work to do. That is important.
Yeah.
Homeschoolers, at least most, some may have struggled with this, but most of us have no problem with our kids having friends, talking with people. In fact, you'll hear them in the background right now. They're socializing because socializing isn't a formal setting of children in a room listening to a teacher and talking to each other. It's just becoming friends and being able to have a conversation with anybody and being polite, proper, kind, all of those things.
And I would honestly argue that it's a more genuine socialization than the sort of forced socialization they get at school, where they're pretty much forced into a classroom of people that they didn't choose to be with. And it's an environment that's honestly a little bit artificial. It's not what we're going to encounter any other time in our lives in what we would say the real world.
Absolutely. I mean, when you think about the true real world, when you become an adult and you go to college, possibly, or any type of school after high school, you're going to have that same setting where it's going to be different people from different walks of life that you have to learn to cope with or get along with, be friendly, whatever it may be. But then you get into the workplace or your family life, and you really are choosing to be where you are, or you're allowing the Lord to place you where you are. And those environments are not the same as 30 children in a classroom with one teacher, and you deal with them either way. When you have socialization as a homeschooler, you're in every different environment that you can think of, because our children go to work with their parents.
Mm-hmm.
They, in the stores, bother people. I shouldn't say bother. But they know how to strike up a conversation with anyone because the relationships there are natural. They don't realize that, oh, I'm a child, so therefore I should only speak to children.
Yeah, and honestly, they're able to go ahead and socialize or interact and communicate with people of all ages, all walks of life, very easily. A lot of times when we go to the grocery store, I have to tell my kids to come back to me and shush a little bit because they are very eager to go talk to everyone. And I love that. I honestly love that. We'll go through the checkout and they'll strike up a conversation with the cashier, no matter what his or her age may be. And they want to know about these people and they want to tell them what they know. And so I think that at this age, at least, we have no problems with socialization. And I always laugh a little bit because I think the socialization question or argument or concern is honestly a little bit dusty, and we just need to kind of put that to rest once and for all. Homeschoolers have no problem socializing.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about your social life, is it something that, oh, I go to school so I can socialize. Mm-hmm. I went to my college class today so I could make friends. I showed up at work because I needed a buddy. That's not realistic in any way, shape, or form. And our relationships are not formed like that, at least not long-lasting ones that really have a benefit to you and the other person. That's what friendship and socialization is. It's give and take.
Yeah.
So if you are in that situation where someone's like, but what if your children aren't socialized? You can remind them that socialization looks like your children talking to someone in the grocery store, going to the post office and having a conversation with the lady behind the counter or the man behind the counter and interacting beyond just a basic conversation. Kids especially little ones, have a natural inclination to ask questions, and they want to know, well, what do you do? Well, how much does this cost? And they know how to just automatically start having a back and forth conversation. At least in my homeschool and my children and the homeschoolers we know, there is no problem in any way, shape, or form of them being able to socialize. Every once in a while, you may have a shy child, but that's their personality. That doesn't mean that they don't socialize.
And there are shy children in regular school settings as well. And I think one thing that would be helpful is, when we as homeschoolers get that question, maybe ask the person asking it, well, what do you mean by socialization?
Define it.
Because honestly, we're kind of thinking of socialization in only one way, and it doesn't have to look exactly like what we may have experienced in a traditional school setting. That's not honestly the only way to socialize. Your kids aren't going to not know how to interact with the world around them by being out in the world around them. I mean,
what a better way to actually learn about life and having communication with people and becoming friends than to get out there and do it. I experienced like this weird difficulty after high school, going into college and the workplace, finding friends. Like, I didn't know how to be like, hi, I'm Keely, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
What's your major? It was very like, oh my gosh, there's a person looking at me, run away. I don't know how to talk to them because I only knew those who I went to school with, and I was comfortable with the group of those around me, and it was this very horribly awkward transition into what does it really look like to be able to talk to anybody who you come in contact with and not just put your head down and duck the other way.
And we all kind of know what happens in classrooms with a lot of kids is there are groups that form their own little circle, and then there are kids, we've always seen the stereotypes of which group does this kid fit in. And it happens in every classroom because you're putting them in this environment where those things form, and then it's very difficult for them to break out of those molds. So we've been seeing a lot of bullying and issues in public school with what goes on there by just having a whole group of kids together to kind of figure things out on their own. But if you have your kids with you during the day, going to the grocery store, going to the post office, going out and doing family things together, they're going to be learning from you, the parents who are their models, how to interact with the world around them. They're going to learn how to be an adult. As we've heard the term said, like, I don't know how to adult.
Yeah, what's adulting?
It's because they need adults to model for them. So when they are stuck in a classroom all day with all kinds of other kids, those are going to be their peers. Those are who are they learning from. And you can have wonderful teachers, but if your ratios are one teacher to 20 to 30 kids, the teacher is not going to be their model. It's going to be the other kids. So you're going to end up having that model, that example for your kids where they're learning from other kids who haven't learned how to interact.
Yeah.
So when you ask about socialization, stop and think a second. What does that mean? Does that mean you want them to have friends at school? Because we can have friends out of school. Or does that mean you want them to be able to have a conversation with someone and act appropriately in society?
Some people, and I have heard this said, I'm sure very few hold to this, but I have heard, well, I send my kids to public school because they need to be able to socialize. And that statement has kind of taken me aback, or even sometimes dumbfounded me, because the point of school, our homeschool and public school, is to educate our children. In no way is it to socialize our children. It is not about the friendships they make. It is about equipping them to know how to learn now as a child and as an adult, and also to prepare them for becoming an adult, to be able to function in the world, have a career, provide for themselves. So socialization really should be the last topic that we have involving homeschool, public school, private school, because sports are a great way for people to make friends.
Yeah.
Girl Scouts, Awanas, Boy Scouts, whatever it may be that your family chooses as an extracurricular, those are opportunities to make friends and socialize. But the school setting should never even have the topic of socialization come up, because that is not the primary goal of school or education.
And honestly, it gets it gets homeschoolers a little bit fired up because we know what we do in our homeschool, and I feel like there has been this stereotype for homeschoolers for so long that we stay in our homes and we just kind of shelter and we don't get out in the world. and to me, it's a little bit funny that someone else is going to worry about my child's socialization. When the first question that they always ask is socialization, I'm always thinking, don't you care about their education?
Which some of them do,
two
but
different things.
most of the time, no. They are genuinely concerned. Marie, your children, they have no friends. They're not seeing other humans. How will they possibly survive?
Yeah.
Of course, that's traumatized for you. But that is really something that I've seen occur from family, friends, and most of all strangers when we go into grocery store. Well, why aren't your children in school today? Well, they already been to school. We homeschool. Well, how are they going to make friends and socialize? And most of the time I just say, you don't have to worry about my kids, but thank you, because getting into this conversation is way more than you can interchange at the grocery store checkout. It goes so much further beyond just a 2-second conversation. You couldn't get anybody to understand or reason with you like, oh, you know what, that makes sense in the time that you have in a quick transaction with someone.
And we can really go into a lot of depth about this, but it is a little telling to me when someone's concerned about that aspect of going to school as socialization, that a lot of what happens at school is really kind of just entertainment. I mean, I said it because, you know, if they were really concerned about education, we would be concerned about sending them to a great school that's got great educational. So now that we've been a little bit fired up by even asking ourselves the question, what about socialization? We should talk a little bit about what does socialization really mean? Does it mean being stuck in a classroom all day? Or is it giving your kids real life skills and how to interact with others outside of the classroom?
If you ask somebody to define what they think of socialization, Madeline,
She's being social.
If you ask somebody to define what socialization is, typically the response that I receive is, well, they know how to play with other children. And that really would be a very basic definition of what socialization is. What would it mean to you?
So, to me, socialization, if you look in the dictionary, I'm going to get a little technical here. If you look in the dictionary under socialization, and then you look at being social, those two words carry very different meanings. Being social is interacting with society, and socialization is being taught to behave a certain way to fit in to your environment. So they're very different things.
And I think that's why we get fired up, because, well, your child will be socialized. Because they are different things, we need to be clear and we need to define. Yep. And so my children are what the public school concerned people typically would say are socialized, but really they're social beings. Yeah. They're not socialized. I mean, they are because they understand manners, please and thank you, yes ma'am, no sir. They know how to follow what is being told to them and fit into the environment that they're put into.
Yeah. For us, we strive to give our kids the ability and the skills to interact with people around them, no matter what age, stage, you know, whether it's a boy or a girl, anything in life, if they want to go out and do all the things. But we have intentionally chosen homeschool because we don't want them to be shoved into a mold, which is typically what socialization is trying to push your kids to act a certain way.
So if someone says, well, how are you going to socialize your child? Well, my goal is not actually to have my child be socialized. It's to teach them to be social in every situation. And for us, a really great example of it is church. Now, I know not everybody goes to church, but my children have since they were young. And there's been times of abundance in families, and there's been times where there's been very little other children, and they can literally go up to anyone from an infant all the way to the oldest of 102 and speak with them, question, how are you? What's going in your life? Can I pray for you? You know, I love you. Tell me about your outfit. They know how to have a conversation with anyone.
Yeah, and putting them in those environments with their parents to where they're interacting with people of all sorts of different ages and backgrounds. They're seeing it modeled by their parents how to go approach somebody, how to strike up a conversation, how to be concerned for one another. And it's building a more genuine social interaction instead of just kind of trying to fit your child into a mold so that they can be socialized.
Absolutely. And so when you think about, oh man, these girls are all bothered about being socialized and having a social life, think about really what it means to you. Define it for your own family of what's important. And then if you get that question, you can combat it a little bit easier. Well, my children are socialized. They have manners and they know what to do in a situation, but they're also social. And you don't have to be rude in your response. You can be kind. You can be genuine. And if you have the time, you can explain where you're coming from. And maybe you'll get somebody else to see the other side of the fact that, you know what, school is not just for being socialized or being social. It's for education.
Yeah, absolutely. So as long as we're on the topic of socialization, when we're all fired up about this, I'm going to go ahead and give a few things that I have felt by that question. I think the underlying tone of what about socialization is really, is your kids having fun? Are they having fun? Because everyone's concerned about them going to school, having their lunchbox, riding on the bus. And we're thinking of that traditional school setting that we knew growing up, and you're worried about them missing out on it. But in my opinion, maybe not everyone's going to agree with this, is the public school or the traditional school setting is honestly a little bit manipulated, and it's a little bit artificial because it doesn't represent what real life is anywhere else in the world. When you grow up and you go out and get a job or you live on your own, you're not going to go every day to a room with a bunch of other people your same age and have to be there and be told by one person all day what you need to do. So having your kids outside of that environment, putting them out in real life, is really going to set them up for life later on and make them be a little bit more successful in their interactions with people. So I think as homeschoolers, we're kind of looking at the long-term picture here. We want to set them up to be successful adults. And although all of those things might be fun, we don't want to focus on that for now. We want to set them up for success later in life. And that doesn't mean we can't go out and have fun. There's a ton of things that we do just to go out and have fun. But we also want to give them genuine interactions instead of forcing them into an artificial environment.
As for me as well, I want my kids' experiences of being social to be genuine. And as you can see, like, the baby's coming up to the adult to strike up a conversation and play. And that's really where it starts, at the youngest age, of teaching them that anybody can be their friend, anyone that can be their confidant. We don't have to have people of the same age. If we had to, you and I couldn't be friends. You know, we're not the same age. Some of my greatest friends are 12 years older than I am. And so, you know, they're like, what? No, you can't do that.
Yeah.
But the reality is that who we socialize with, who become our friends, who become our family, really.
Yeah.
They're not going to look the same as us. They're not going to be the same age. And for our children as well. And it's so important that we teach them to be social with all people, because it really, one, helps break, what do we want to say about this? It breaks up the chance that they're going to bully someone for not being like them.
Yeah.
And it forces them to see all people as an option to have a friendship with. There's nobody that's off limits. You know, finances, our clothing, you know, the cars they drive, none of those things can affect who they become friends with, because they just know that all people can be your friend, no matter what. And that is the ultimate goal for me, because in life, if you only ever had a relationship with people who were just like you, that wouldn't be very interesting.
No, and I think there's a lot of value in your kids knowing that they can seek out people of different ages and different walks of life, because sometimes we do need to find mentors in our life, and we need someone who's walked that road before. So there's a lot of value in finding older people or more mature people or people who have been through hard situations to kind of gain advice from them as well. So you're setting them up in a more real environment to be more successful as an adult because they know they have resources in other people.
Absolutely. And looking through my life, if I understood as a young adult or an early teen that just those my age, I wasn't limited to that. Like that I could have been friends with other people. Maybe it would have made an easier transition into adulthood for me. And because I have that public school background, but I'm now a homeschooling mom, I'm able to look at things from both sides. I remember, I mean, I'm not that old. I still do recall what my formative years were like. And there was such an awkwardness of being able to make friends because I was not one of the popular ones, as you would say. I wasn't in a clique or a group, and I didn't have a bunch of people that I always hung around and were my friends. I mean, I wasn't like lonely and had nobody, but I definitely didn't know or understand how to form relationships with anyone.
Yeah.
And even as an adult still today, I see where I get like that nervousness of like, oh, I have to strike up a conversation with someone who I don't really know. That's nerve-wracking. And what will they think of me? But we're trying to set the standard with your children. You don't worry about what others think of you. You just love them and accept them, and you show them kindness, and that's what you do to socialize with others.
And I do want to say that, you know, some of that pecking order stuff, it doesn't only happen in public school.
No, absolutely not.
You're gonna experience that anywhere you go because people are honestly fallen and sinful, and we are imperfect. So you're gonna experience that anywhere. But if you take them yourselves, if your parents are there with you, you're going to be able to be the example of how to handle those situations.
Absolutely.
Instead of letting it just kind of go and fester and become something more than it needs to be.
And the last topic that I would like to touch on regarding socialization is there will be those bad experiences that we have when socializing. And I'm not going to say that, oh, it's all peachy when you homeschool. You'll never have a day where your child will have their feelings hurt or be bullied because, like you said, it is a fallen, broken, sinful world. We have these things happen, but we also teach our children forgiveness, loving kindness towards others, and how that just because our feelings are hurt from somebody else does not change the fact that we should love them, we can love them, we can forgive them, and that relationships can be restored. Because growing up, I remember like crossing people out of my yearbook. Like, yes, I'm gonna admit that right now. Like, they've done something wrong to me, I no longer like them, this is the end. But I want my children to always know how to forgive and to heal, mend, and fix relationships that have been damaged, hurt, or broken, because that is the full circle of socializing. Is having conflict as well as fellowship and being able to handle and take care of either of those positions.
And honestly, by coming alongside your child and helping them figure this out instead of either fully sheltering them from it or sending them in alone is going to give them a better foundation on how to handle conflict later on in life. And it's never easy. It doesn't matter how much conflict you've been through. It's not easy. We're all gonna, and every time it's gonna be different, but it's gonna give them some skills, and it's gonna let them know that as a parent, you're there for them. You are their mentor, and of it is.
Absolutely. And so if you are confronted with the question of, well, how will you socialize your children? Just respond in love. And sometimes it's okay to say, you know what, I don't have an answer for you because you may not feel confident enough to give that answer. And that is also okay.
Now that you've watched, hopefully, this whole video, the next time somebody asks you, what about socialization, you can just share the link with them.
We're totally plugging ourselves here. But really, if someone is not sure, there are resources that you can give them, this being one of them. But even if you if you don't feel confident speaking to them, it is a great way to be like, hey, I have a great video I could send you on why your opinion is wrong. I'm just kidding.
And if you do a quick search online, you're going to find a million different responses from a million different homeschoolers, because honestly, this is an old argument, an old question that gets asked all the time. And we assure you, you do not have to worry about homeschoolers and socialization. We may be a little bit weird, but we know how to interact.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching today. We hope that you liked the feisty debate of why socialization is or isn't an important topic. And we will see you next time. Please don't forget to subscribe if you aren't already and give this video a like.
Also, make sure you tap that bell for notifications so you never miss another video from us. And the next time you see a homeschooler, don't ask about their socialization.